Hello and welcome again to another exciting Encountering Jesus, where I invite you to put aside what you know or what you think you know about Jesus and look at him afresh as we go through John's Gospel. And of course, as you know, John was a close friend of Jesus and an eyewitness to all that he wrote in his Gospel. And last time we looked at Jesus healing a blind man by putting mud on his eyes and declaring that he was the light of the world. And if you missed that one, the link is in the description below. But as always, if you're enjoying this series, why not like, subscribe and click the button and you'll never miss another episode. Well, today we're carrying on that story where the blind man has been healed and he starts being interrogated. And he starts being interrogated by his neighbours. And we're looking at John chapter 9 verses 10 to 41. And I'm going to be going from the New Living Translation, but I'll also put the words up on the screen, or you can use whatever translation you wish. So as I said, we're going from John chapter 9 verses 10 to 41, and make sure you've got a cuppa with you. They asked the neighbours and his friends, "Who healed you? What happened?" And he told them, "The man they called Jesus made mud and spread it over my eyes and told me, 'Go to the pool of Siloam and wash yourself.' So I went and washed, and now I can see." "Where is he now?" they asked. "I don't know," he replied. Then they took the man who had been blind to the Pharisees, because it was on the Sabbath that Jesus had made the mud and healed him. The Pharisees asked the man all about it, so he told him, "He put the mud over my eyes, and when I washed it away, I could see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man Jesus is not from God, for he's working on the Sabbath." Others said, "But how could an ordinary sinner do such miraculous signs?" So there was a deep division of opinion among them. Then the Pharisees again questioned the man who had been blind and demanded, "What's your opinion about this man who healed you?" The man replied, "I think he must be a prophet." The Jewish leaders still refused to believe the man had been blind and could now see. So they called in his parents. They asked him, "Is this your son? Was he born blind? If so, how can he now see?" His parents replied, "We know this is our son and that he was born blind, but we don't know how he can see or who healed him. Ask him. He is old enough to speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders, who had announced that anyone saying Jesus was the Messiah would be expelled from the synagogue. That's why they said, "He is old enough, ask him." So for the second time they called in the man who had been blind and told him, "God should get the glory for this, because we know this man Jesus is a sinner." "I don't know whether he is a sinner," the man replied, "but I know this. I was blind and now I can see." "But what did he do?" they asked. "How did he heal you?" "Look," the man exclaimed, "I told you once, didn't you listen? Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" Then they cursed him and said, "You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know God spoke to Moses, but we don't even know where this man comes from." "Why, that's very strange," the man replied. "He healed my eyes, and yet you don't know where he comes from. We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but he is ready to hear those who worship him and do his will. Ever since the world began, no one has been able to open the eyes of someone born blind. If this man were not from God, he couldn't have done it." "You were born a total sinner," they answered. "Are you trying to teach us?" And they threw him out of the synagogue. When Jesus heard what had happened, he found the man and asked, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" The man answered, "Who is he, sir? I want to believe in him." "You have seen him," Jesus said, "and he is speaking to you." "Yes, Lord, I believe," the man said, and he worshipped Jesus. Then Jesus told him, "I entered this world to render judgment, to give sight to the blind, and to show those who think they can see that they are blind. Some of the Pharisees who were standing nearby heard him and asked, "Are you saying we're blind?" "If you were blind, you wouldn't be guilty," Jesus replied. "But you remain guilty because you claim you can see." You know, many of us work long hours and sometimes even 7 days a week. And we may be doing it for various reasons. We may be seeking recognition, promotion, or more comfort in life. The question is, are these things really necessary? You know, 50 years ago, people worked hard for the basics in life, food and shelter. But now there's so much more that we work for. We might work for a big house, cars, gadgets, holidays abroad. And while it's not wrong to work for these things and to be rewarded for these things, we may miss obvious treasures that are right in front of us. You know, Jesus healed this man on the Sabbath, and we looked at that in the last episode. But he healed this man and he put mud on his eyes, but he healed him on the Sabbath. And the thing is, in God's law, it said that you couldn't do work on the Sabbath. You had to rest on the Sabbath. But the Pharisees didn't know what work was. So they piled on law after law after law after law after law on top of God's law to try and define what exactly work was. And they even construed that Jesus healing a man and putting mud on someone's eyes was work. But God's law was for our benefit. God's law was not to hold us down and to burden us. It's for our benefit. God's law was to give us liberty. To rest on the Sabbath means that we don't have to think about work. We can rest, we can have relationships with our friends, with our families, and most importantly, have a relationship with God himself, to rest from all the burdens of the week so that we can be refreshed in readiness for the coming week. And we know sometimes how hard work can be. And by focusing on God's law, they actually missed the miracle that was right in front of their eyes. You know, Jesus healed a man born blind. Putting mud on his eyes. How could you heal someone putting mud on their eyes? And yet he did. And all they could think of was, you've broken God's law. And they missed the wonderful miracle that Jesus had done. You know, Jesus came so we could have a relationship with God, but relationships are not on laws. They're based on love. They're based on love. And the thing is, you know, this man was healed and he worshipped Jesus. When Jesus revealed himself to him, he worshipped him. And Jesus didn't want the man to jump through hoops and say, "Oh, well, you're not worshipping me properly. I don't like that song you're singing. I don't like that dance you're dancing. You're not saying the right words." Jesus wants a relationship with that man, and he wants a relationship with us. And successful relationships, as I said, are not built on rules. They're built on a relationship of love. And there's no rule book. You know, if I brought my wife home some flowers and I said, "Here you go, Liz, there's some lovely flowers for you." And she went, oh, thanks, Mark, that's brilliant. And I said, "Well, you know, we're married, I'm supposed to get you flowers." Well, that's a bit legalistic, isn't it? I'd most probably get the flowers, and if they're in a vase, I'd get that over my head as well. It's not about rules. It's about relationship. And looking at God's law, it's about the spirit of the law. Does it bring you into a closer relationship with Jesus and with others or not? Because God's law shouldn't be a burden. You know, we can be blinded by lots of material things, thinking that they're going to, fill this emptiness that's inside us. And while they may fill it for a while, they don't fill it permanently. Because the only thing that can fill us, completely fill us, is a relationship with God. It's a relationship with God through his son, Jesus, who gave everything, for us. Yes, he wanted to heal the man born blind, but it's all about relationship. Jesus didn't care that it was the Sabbath because this man needed healing. His greatest need was healing. And when he saw Jesus, what did he do? He worshipped him. I don't know how he worshipped him. He might have knelt or anything else. But Jesus really just wanted to be in relationship with this man. And 2,000 years later, guess what? He still wants to be in relationship with men and women, boys and girls, like you and me. Oh, I'll keep this here. So as always, a reflection. What do you know about Jesus that you didn't know before? How has this changed his opinion of you? And what other questions does this raise? And as always, everything that I've said here is in this book. Maybe I've said a bit more that's in this book, but everything's in this book, and there's places that you can write your thoughts. And there's also live monologues of people like the blind man meeting Jesus, so you can get an experience of what they're about when they actually meet Jesus. So as always, if you've liked this video, why not like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time over another cuppa.